Hi, my name is Michael Gilmour. I'm one of the founders of ParkLogic.com and also the writer of Whizbang's blog. It is great to have you here with us. Anyway, today we'll actually be looking at a webinar that I ran the other day on traffic revenue and how you can earn more from your traffic revenue. So without any further ado, I'll get things started and straight into it. Thanks a lot for that. All right, let's get started. Okay. The first thing I'd like to go through here is the number one thing is domains take work. They take a lot of work, and I often say that domain owners work incredibly hard for their passive incomes. And what we'll be taking a look at in this particular webinar is looking at traffic revenue and how to maximize traffic revenue, and more particularly what we do, say, also at ParkLogic, what we've found across the last 8 years, and sharing some of my experience. I'll then at the end open it up for questions, and so you can ask whatever questions you like and everything like that, and I'll be as open as I possibly can. If you have any questions along the way, just type them in the box just there, and more than happy to go ahead and answer them as we go through different slides. Now, I must give you some warning. Some of the stuff we'll go through, it can be quite technical, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible with the examples. Okay, a few things. Number one, business hasn't changed. When we talk about business and we talk about traffic revenue, it's revenue less expenses equals profit. Thank goodness that hasn't really changed. So on the revenue side, I've done a number of different webinars, one on building a business, and actually I built a website within 60 minutes. In fact, I did a presentation at Traffic, and we actually built a business model for a domain in 30 minutes, and the final 30 minutes we built the actual site in front of everyone. I pulled someone from the audience. So I've done quite a bit on that, on sales. At the last webinar, there's quite a lot of people at, and there's a lot of people actually looking at the video. I did a whole series on sales, but this time we're looking at monetization, particularly when we're looking at traffic routing. What does it mean to route traffic to maximize your returns? Okay, the expense side of the business, obviously registration, management time. There's another webinar I've done that's all about the expense side of the business as well. Okay, traffic monetization is dead. I hear this over and over again. I see it in forums all the time saying, look, if you want to monetize your traffic, it's all dead. Google's gone on, won the game, and they're paying everyone peanuts. I just want to say right up front, that is not true. Traffic monetization is not dead and is very much alive. And one of the things we found at ParkLogic, we've actually flipped a lot of the model on its head, where we take traffic in from domains, we auction that off in about 30 milliseconds to a whole series of direct advertising networks. And if they come back and they can beat the highest number that domain has received before, then they get the traffic directly to the advertiser. If they can't, we then route it through to the winning parking company at that instance in about the next 70 milliseconds. The total transaction takes about 100 milliseconds. The traffic comes in, auctioned off, auction doesn't win, it goes to and backfills with a domain sponsor, a CDO, and so forth. So traffic monetization is definitely not dead. And the major reason why is because advertisers still want quality traffic. They're always searching for quality traffic, and that will continue. So what's the point of using multiple monetization solutions? Now, I'm going to simplify things back on this, is that, let me say right up front, if you have all your domains with a single partner, a single monetization partner, like a domain sponsor or a seed, I'll pick on those two, then you're actually going to be losing money. And I'll show you some proof points later on in the presentation. But the major reasons why you actually want to use multiple solutions is maximize your revenue. Next one is flexibility to move your traffic to optimal solution in real time. Because one of the things we have found that whoever's going to pay actually moves constantly, pay the most, moves constantly. and to manage risk and exposure. So there's a whole side of risk and exposure because you don't want all your eggs necessarily in one basket. Okay, well, so what is the best way to measure traffic performance? Some people say to me, okay, well, it's the total money earned for a month. Okay, but hang on, is that dollars in February 28 days, is that better than, say, $450 in January 31 days? So then they say, well, hang on, that's not dollars per month because we're going to bring it back to a day or something like that. You get a different number of days. But it's $500 in December 31 days better than $300 in October 31 days. And then you have potential seasonality issues. And then you say, okay, I'll go to the dollars per day, but it's $500 a day in March better than $300 a day in June. But let's imagine you had twice as much traffic in March. So really, the key is it depends upon the traffic. So I have a lot of people say to me, Michael, all I care about is the revenue, and if you can give me more revenue, then that's what's important. And I keep on coming back to the point here is that really it's going to depend upon the traffic. And we, for example, we did some analysis with a client in May, but they gave us the domains in June. Their baseline data was for May, and towards the end of June, we saw their revenue line really dip. And we did a whole lot of analysis. We looked at the different domains. We discovered they're mostly educational domains. And we say, oh, well, the reason why the revenue lines dip because all of the educational advertisers have vacated the market for the holiday period, and they'll come back in September. So there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts in analyzing what's going on with domains. So let's take a look at what is revenue per thousand visitors. That's what most people use as a measurement. They say it's called RPM, revenue per thousand, M for millennium or 1,000. So RPM is revenue divided by uniques times 1,000. Yeah, so you think, okay, so it's revenue divided by unique visitors times 1,000. So that scales it. So let's take a look at how, just keeping that in the back of our mind there, what RPM is, let's take a look at how statistics can lie then. We'll take two parking companies with exactly the same domains at the same time. We have parking company number one, parking company number two. So parking company number one are $20, parking company number two are $10 across the same period of time. Then you look at this and you say, well, parking company one, this Magneto, obviously they're doing so much better than, say, poor old domain sponsor there. But then I tell you a bit more information. You say, well, the uniques was 200 and 100. And you say, well, okay, so remember my RPM formula is revenue divided by uniques times 1,000. So they've got actually the same RPM, exactly the same RPM. So what's going on here? The thing to understand about parking companies is that everyone counts their uniques differently. In fact, they're used quite often as a marketing pitch. Domain sponsor tends to be very aggressive in reducing the number of uniques displayed in their interface. So it makes it look like their RPMs are higher, so they've been artificially inflated. And that's just the way they filter their traffic. There's nothing against them for doing that. But what it means is you cannot compare a pseudo RPM versus a domain sponsor RPM. If you do that, you're comparing apples with oranges, not apples with apples. So as we can see just here, we have two identical RPMs. So RPM is revenue divided by uniques times 1,000. So the question we need to then ask is, what the heck is unique then? So when I go into my interface from my parking company I'm working with and they say views, and they tell you, oh, this domain had 50 views, this one had 30 views, and so forth, what actually is that? And a lot of it comes down to definitional terms. So what is a unique? A unique is the total number of traffic, the amount of traffic for a domain, raw traffic times a filter, which is parking company dependent. Steve just asked a question here, do you have CPA offers? Yeah, absolutely. We linked into a lot of CPA networks as well, Steve. Yeah, so it's not just direct advertising, CPA as well. So it's uniques equals URLs or raw traffic times a filter. So, and that filter is parking company dependent. We actually call this internally the dumping ratio or amplification ratio. In other words, how much traffic does a parking company actually dump and not report back to you? One of the things we report in our interface is we tell you the raw traffic. We call the URLs, how many URLs or raw piece of traffic actually ended up at your domain name. If you've ever been in a situation where you've said to yourself, why is it that I go along and put this particular domain name at one parking company and they go and tell me there's 50 views, and I put another parking company and they say it's 500 views. It's because their filter is different. It's not them trying to be malevolent in any stretch of the imagination. So how do we get back to the URL? Like the financial markets, domain data should provide monetization comparisons. We need to get back to the raw traffic. Let's take a look at this. By the way, if we don't get back to the raw traffic, we can't actually do a comparison. And I'll show you that comparison shortly of comparing one, say, parking company versus another parking company. We have inbound traffic. So we count all the inbound URLs. This is the technical way of doing it. We count all the traffic sent to each parking company. We have a whole server farm. All the traffic comes in. We count all traffic sent to each parking company and page displayed to the user at the different parking companies. So we count all the traffic coming into a domain. We then go along in our systems and algorithms and we say, how much do we send to CETA? How much do we send to Parking Crew? How much do we send to domain sponsor and so forth for every single domain? And we count the number of URLs completely unfiltered. And I'll show you the reasons why we do that. Let's take a look at this. Getting to the true winner. Remember we had this little picture before, which was parking company number 1 with $20, $200, $100, and so forth. We said, they're exactly the same. But let's just continue on there. Let me add the fact that we send 1,000 URLs to parking company number 1. Remember, that's a raw piece of traffic. And only 200 URLs to parking company number 2. So let's take a look at what happens. So who's winning? And the way to find out who's winning is to get back to what's called a normalized RPM. Normalized, in other words, allows us to compare everyone against everyone else. Remember our formula of RPM, now put an ML in front of it, so it's normalized RPM, is revenue, but instead of divided by uniques or views that the parking companies have filters on, we divide it by the raw traffic. And that's the critical thing, times 1,000. And the only way you could do that is because we've actually counted exactly how many pieces of traffic we've sent from one company to another. To be effective, the normalized RPM needs to be calculated in comparable, statistically significant periods of time for every revenue source for every domain. To give you an idea of what's involved, we actually track over 250 different metrics for every single domain every single day. That's an enormous amount of data. In fact, for those of you who are actually using ParkLogic right now, we do things such as the world spins, we match lunchtime in Berlin with lunchtime in Los Angeles, because you want to be able to do that. So we need to have the world spin for 24 hours. We then have to wait the world spin again to collect all the data. Then we spend about 12 to 15 hours processing that data. It takes a lot of effort in order to do that. But we now have a normalized RPM. Now, the only thing you need to think about it with a normalized RPM is it allows us to now directly compare one company to another. So let's just come back to our little example we saw before. Parking company number 1, parking company number 2. We have 1,000 URLs, 200. Remember our formula? Allows us to then calculate who's really winning. And you can see that parking company number 1 has a 20 normalized RPM, while parking company number 2 has 50. Why? Parking company number 1 receives so much more traffic, but they only produced double the revenue. And so we're constantly monitoring this. It says normalized RPM was developed by ParkLogic about 7, I think it's now 8 years ago. that allowed true success to be determined. We know exactly who's winning traffic on a domain-by-domain basis at any single point in time. In fact, I was looking at data for one of our clients just yesterday, and the thing I was looking at was the normalized RPMs for every single parking company, every single monetization source, direct advertising networks, everything like that. And I knew exactly who was winning at any point in time that piece of traffic from that particular domain. Okay, the numbers that make up the normalized RPM, the only numbers you can rely upon for decision making, whatever your traffic management approach, everything else cannot be used to compare one source versus another. Now let me explain the reason why. If you think about it, you've got normalized RPM is revenue divided by URLs. We now can count the URLs. We built a system for counting URLs times 1,000. So we can actually nail down all the different metrics in that formula. So that now you go, woohoo, yay, we did it. That's just awesome. I'm very excited about that. We can now compare CEDA versus internet traffic versus parking crew and so forth. Well, not quite. One of the things we found is that when you look at the normalized RPM formula, sure, we can count URLs, and we know the times 1,000, but how about revenue? Which revenue number do you use? You may say, well, what do you mean, Michael? Well, there's actually about 7 different revenue numbers for every single domain. And that's a lot of different revenue numbers. So if we look, to give an example, are you going to use the estimated stats number to calculate your normalized RPM? Or you can use the confirmed number that's not confirmed by Google and Yahoo. Or you use the confirmed number 2 days later. Or the number after any clawbacks in the account. Or the number after the revenue account adjustments. Or the number posted after non-payment of advertisers. Or the short-term guaranteed number from a deal you may have done. What are all the different things that can possibly get into the mix? We spent about 6 months developing a whole series of algorithms and approaches for nailing down how to actually work out the best revenue number. To give an example, what we found that some of the monetization sources would do, or parking companies would do, is they would say, Michael, we're going to pay you a whole lot of money for this traffic, for this domain. So they would pay $50 for it for the day. But then at the end of the month, they do a clawback or an account adjustment of, say, 30 of it. So they got the traffic because our algorithms would sway the traffic towards them, then they would pull it all back. And so we call that a bribing of the algorithms. They would then bribe the whole thing. And so we solved that problem after 6 months of work, and we wrapped a few people over the knuckles for attempting that process, but in the end it worked out nicely. Okay, so selecting the correct revenue number means you can actually be out by as much as 50% in that formula, normalized RPM. So if you don't get the right revenue number, then you'll be routing your traffic incorrectly. So people have said to me, so Michael, what's the difference between say, ParkLogic and, say, some other companies that may do something similar to what you're doing? And I'd sort of say, well, just ask them really simply what revenue number they use to calculate their normalized RPM. And if they look at you strangely and say, well, what do you mean? Then you know you've got the wrong company, because they'll be routing the traffic incorrectly. Anyway, so we now have a normalized RPM. Well, not quite, but it's close enough. There's actually a lot more technical things in it than that. And like I said, we spent the last 8 years working on ways of statistically and accurately measuring traffic, but it'll do for now. Okay, so if you've ever heard the term a traffic rotator, so what you don't want to do is you don't want to put all your domains in one company. If that's the case, then what is a traffic rotator? How can I create a traffic rotator? A few things, if you've ever heard the safe harbor warnings, This actually can tend to tick some people off, having a traffic rotator, but simply because what it means, they're being held accountable for their results every second or every single day. And we've found over the years that some of the monetization companies don't like being held accountable, and so they may get a little bit upset. But I must admit, we've aggregated so much traffic that they want the traffic no matter what. So let's take a look at how a traffic rotator works and why it is so really worthwhile. So I'm going to create a contrived example here. We have a parking company number 1, 2, and 3. We have URLs. We have a normalized RPM and revenue. So let's imagine you're sending all your traffic to parking company number 1. Send 100 URLs, normalized RPM of 10, gives a revenue of $1. So then you go along and say, I'm going to create a test across a period of time, across a month. And instead of putting all the 100 URLs to one parking company, I'm going to split it equally, 33, 33, 34. And the results coming back are a normalized RPM of 10, 11, and 5. So you've got a revenue generated of 33 cents, 36 cents, and 17 cents. So then you say to yourself, you know what? We found a winner here. We got a 10% increase. So if we send all of our 100 URLs at 11 RPM, we'll get $1.10. And that's really what it's about. But let's just think about what's the costs involved here. So initially, if we did not route our traffic anywhere, we had a dollar's earnings. Earnings during the test of 86 cents, and you can see that earnings during the test month. The cost to buy information. Now, let me explain what this is. Every time you do a sample, if I'm sending my traffic as an example here, and I'm getting paid $1 worth of revenue, and if I'm thinking, gee, I may get paid more somewhere else, and I sample, that information will cost me. In this case, we can actually quantify it. Instead of getting $1, we got 86 cents, so the cost to buy was 14 cents. The net benefit was $1.10. Days for payback was actually, if you do the math, is 42 days. So to get the money back and to be going forward, it'll take 42 days. And this is something we pay a lot of attention to, because what you want to do in any sort of rotation system is to minimize your cost to buy information. So let's take a look at, that was generation 1. That's something we did back in, like I said, about 8 years ago. We did that for a couple of years, trying to find out where the best monetization companies were. So now let's take a look at intelligence switching. Exactly the same data. So parking company 100 URLs, 10 RPM revenue. But this time, instead of switching it before, what we do is we have an algorithm which allows us to switch it 80 URLs, 10, and 10. So a statistically significant amount of traffic, and we can see some results coming through. So instead of equally splitting it, we have an algorithm which works out what is that statistical significance. We get exactly the same results as before back, exactly the same sort of, then we can calculate a revenue line to 96 cents, and we get exactly the same result of $1.10. So let's look at our numbers. Base earnings of $1, earnings during test of 96 cents, the cost to buy the information was 4 cents, the net benefit of $1.10, 12 days payback. As Jonathan just said there, it's like the opportunity cost to buy that information. So if you use intelligence switching and you really sort of tweak algorithms, all that sort of stuff, you can get a much faster payback, like I said, in terms of 12 days. And you may say, jeepers, Michael, like all this over 10 cents? So, well, yeah, absolutely. This is a contrived example. And to give you an idea, just recently we had someone who had all their traffic at one particular parking company. They're a very large player in the industry, in fact. And we took their domains in, and we gave them over a 50% uplift in revenue. I'm not saying we can do that all the time,
but we gave a very, very large lift in revenue, and the reason why is because we paid attention to the 4 cents and the 110 cents, and that's really, really important. So we've continued to refine that over the years, and we're doing a lot more work around switching, and particularly around also risk management and everything like that on the switching side. Okay, so you've got to be kidding me. This is what you need to say to anyone that has a rotator. If someone comes up to you and says, I've got a rotator, you need to put your traffic with me, you just got to laugh at them and say, guys, I now understand what a rotator is. Don't go to someone who just has a rotator. Like I was in a forum recently and someone said, oh, it's easy to build a rotator. You just go along and you can just a simple little program, and it'll rotate the traffic between the different parking companies, all that sort of stuff. That's so simple to do. Don't do it. As I've showed here, you'll lose money. The second thing is this, and that's why intelligent switching is so important. What I didn't also go into here is the whole, a lot of things that Google has done around DRIDs and so forth, domain register and ID, which I'll talk about shortly. Okay, so this has all been really interesting, theoretical, and a heck of a lot of maths and that sort of stuff. But are there really any gains to be taken? I just took a snapshot out of our data for November versus April for all different parking sources and the percentage changes. There's a couple of things I want you to notice here. In April, no monetization solution wins more than 25% of the traffic, which means that if you have all your traffic in one place, I can just about guarantee that you're losing 75% of the time. You're leaving lots of money on the table. And this is data from our system. It's just there. So what you want to do then is you actually want to be able to split the traffic across using intelligent switching. Okay, there are huge swings within a few months of who wins traffic. You take a look at this. Parking company number 1 went from 28% down to 19%. That's a 42% change downward, 16% change downwards, and so forth. So there's very large percentage changes. Parking company number 9, they really got their act together. They went from 6% to 21%, so they had an increase of 70%. And what we see is this, is that traffic migrates between the different parking companies. And by the way, in this is not the direct advertisers and so forth. I'm just talking about the parking companies themselves. The traffic migrates dramatically between one to the other, and whoever is going to be paying more or less for that traffic. And as I say to the different parking companies, they keep on saying to me, Michael, why don't you send me more? Why don't you send us more traffic? And I said, well, you're actually getting exactly how much you deserve. And they sort of stopped. And I said, yeah, we'd love to send you more traffic, but you're just not paying enough for it. And some of them got that, and they end up increasing rev shares, all that sort of stuff. And because I never talked to them about revenue share. And they say, also ask, why don't you talk about revenue share? And I say, well, I'll leave that up to you to actually bring that up with us, because if you're smart, you'd realize the more you're paying, the more traffic you'll end up getting. And there's obviously a balance of revenue versus profit for them on their side. But it's really important to understand that everyone will get paid precisely what they deserve. What this is another interesting picture of is essentially market share. Is who has the market share in the industry. It gives a rough picture of that, which is a whole separate conversation. Maybe I should do a webinar on the industry at large. Yeah, the other thing is having more traffic sources means more testing, which leads to greater costs and buyer information. It doesn't actually show that particularly well in this table here is this. But remember we talked about the cost of buyer information. If you have, say, 20 different sources and you want to test all those 20, that means it's going to cost you more to sample all those different monetization sources. What you want to do is reduce it back as much you possibly can to minimize the amount of traffic you're actually sampling and to get the best result from that. You do not want to have 20 odd different solutions. That's actually a bad outcome. Yeah, so it's all about what does it cost for to bind that information. So what you need to consider with routing traffic, the first thing is this: the data must be timely. You've got to have all your data at your fingertips all the time. I might see if I can take a look in our own systems here and see if I can pull out a domain shortly. Period of the domain, high versus low traffic domains. That's really important as well. What I mean by that is this, is if I've got a low traffic domain, by the way, we count any domain that has more than one unique a day or more as a traffic domain. So if I have a domain doing one unique every few days, then that would be a low traffic domain, which means I do not want to sample the traffic as often because it will cost more information, it will cost more to buy that information. On the other hand, if I've got a domain doing 1,000 uniques a day, I can take 2% of the traffic and constantly sampling who's going to pay the most for the traffic. Constantly doing that. So that's something to take into account. Sample size volumes. You must have a statistically significant sample size. So if you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to build my own intelligent switching system and all that sort of stuff, that's what you need to consider. Capping max and minimum amounts of traffic to solutions. What you don't want to do is send a whole lot of the traffic to a particular solution. Or in some cases, what we will do, we'll say send at least this much traffic, say to CEDO. Send at least this much traffic to domain sponsor. And you may say, why would you want to do that? Well, it forces a sampling to be able to do that. Geolocation. You get paid differently for traffic from Europe compared to, say, traffic from the US. People pay differently. Speed to transaction directly impacts click-through rate. If you're once again going to be building your own system, then if you take, say, 200 milliseconds to process traffic coming through your system, then it directly impacts the click-through rate. People won't wait for the page to display, even for 100 milliseconds. So you want to do that as fast as possible. Google, Yahoo, or direct advertisers respond differently. Now, one of the challenges we've seen, Google introduced a system called DRIDs. Sounds like dread, actually. That's Domain Registrant ID. They introduced that about 18 months, 2 years ago. What it means is that if you have if every parking company, if every parking company account you have must have identical DRID information in there, which is all the same address, details of the person, all that sort of thing. And if you don't have that, then Google ends up penalizing you. So make sure you manage that sort of information. Smart pricing, you can take into account that. Numbers of smart pricing is Google Smart Pricing. Number of routing solutions I mentioned before, how many solutions, which are the best solutions. The real cost of buying information, get down to that. Unique revenue metrics for every monetization solution. You must be able to track back to that normalized RPM. If you cannot track back to the normalized RPM, then you're going to go wrong with your answers. So you must know which revenue number you use, how much raw traffic you have. Short-term gain versus long-term sustainable results. This is an interesting one. We've seen, how can I put this bluntly, there was a deal at a traffic conference, I think it was a couple of conferences ago, which was in the process of exploding in front of the domainer's face. What occurred, the particular monetization company had said, we're going to pay you a huge amount of guaranteed revenue. And the domainer was just rubbing their hands together with glee, and they're saying, this is fantastic, guaranteed, and huge amounts of money. So that was great. So in order to make ends meet, what the particular monetization company did was they ran traffic over the person's domains. So they did arbitrage on top of the person's domains. And they got them banned, a whole lot of them banned at Google. So be very, very careful. So at the end of by the way, the end of the period of time of the agreement, I think it was like 3 months, just a test, they handed domains back, and they're mostly banned at Google, and they washed their hands of it. The domainer was left with a complete mess in their hands, which I don't think to this day they can actually sort out. It was not good. So be very, very careful of the short-term gain. The thing we always focus on is long-term sustainable results. Give an example, we're working with some very, very large domain investors, professional domain investors, and we provide them a report. Some of them, one of them particular I'm thinking of, has just come onto our platform the last couple of months. And each week I have a meeting with them. We provide them a report compared against baseline. And we say, this is where we're winning, this is where we're losing. But more importantly, this is why we think we're losing, and this is why we think we're winning on a domain-by-domain basis. We provide all that data. And they're quite blown away that we'd be openly show why we're losing. And they said, why do you show that? I said, well, we're interested in long-term sustainable results, including a long-term sustainable business relationship. That's what we want to see. So we can pull apart that data for you. Look, routing traffic is a complex process, requires structured processes and methods. It really is complex. It sounds really simple to be able to route your traffic, but it takes a lot of effort to actually do it. So domaining isn't easy. This is just one aspect of it. And if you think about it, this is only the routing of the traffic. There's another whole aspect of this is when you route the traffic to monetization solution, how do you maximize the returns in terms of getting the right keyword combination, making sure the click-through rate is right up, so the user intent's there, making sure you've got the highest paying keyword. So you get the highest earnings per click and highest click-through rate to get a maximum normalized RPM. So this is the sort of stuff that we pull apart. So working with a trusted partner, like I said, we've been around a long time. It allows us to focus on what you're good at and get better results without stress and hardship. Now, I did a analysis on this where the thing I found, even for my own portfolio, I actually obviously have ParkLogic manage that for me. And the reason why I do so is not just because ParkLogic happens to be my company, is because it makes economic sense. It's much better to hand across my portfolio to a professional company that goes along and extracts every dollar revenue out of it than it is to go and try to do it all myself. If you work out the dollar per hour you may get paid and everything like that, it's much better to outsource that. Focus on, say, developing a domain to a business, or focus on selling your domains, or focus on some other aspect of your life, whatever it is you're doing, spending more time on the beach, sipping martinis or something, I don't know. But focus on that and enjoy that. And I find that outsourcing the traffic monetization, ultimately, it'd be great to outsource, if you truly outsource the domain sales, even better. And if you can outsource a lot of those things, it allows you to focus. And what I've seen that a lot of domainers do, they forget to do, is that because they like playing with their domains, it's like it's almost like a hobby. And they go along, they work with their domains, and they just love every single one of them, and they know them intimately, they know where they live, they know what's going on with them and all that sort of stuff, and they just love those domains. And they find it's almost like separation anxiety to get it out, do outsourcing. We actually manage domain portfolios for a number of private equity companies, and they just said, give us a quarterly report we can put in front of the board, manage these domains according to this set of business rules, and here's the keys to the registrar, you do everything, see you later. And they then fired a whole load of their technical people in the process. So we just do everything for them. From right that extreme right through to something is you can still do everything you want to do if you want to in our interface. Yeah, so that gives you an idea of what it means to do traffic routing. And I know it is technical. It is a very technical subject, and there's a lot to it. But that gives you an idea on traffic routing. What I'd like to do now is throw it open to
Hi, so there you have
questions.
it, the webinar on traffic routing. Now, there's a lot in that, a lot of numbers and statistics and everything like that, but I hope you get really grasp the various examples I went through, and the fact that if you put all your traffic in one place, you're actually losing money. So one of the things at ParkLogic we do is we route the traffic. Not only that, there's a whole other side of it, which is keyword optimization, lander optimization, a lot of those sort of things we do also. It'd be great to hear from you. I would look forward to it. So please make sure you contact me at WhizBangsBlog or ParkLogic.com. Anyway, thanks a lot for that, and have a great day.